Okay, let's unpack this. We got a pretty fascinating snapshot of the NBA playoffs for you today.
Yeah, definitely some interesting results.
We're diving into three specific games from April 23rd, 2025. We've got the Indiana Pacers versus the Milwaukee Bucks,
Always a good matchup.
Oklahoma City Thunder against the Memphis Grizzlies, and then the Los Angeles Lakers taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Right, covering a good mix there.
And our goal here, it isn't just, listing the winners. We want to really dig into what these games are telling us about the current playoff landscape.
Exactly. It's about the strategies, the standout performances, maybe where these series are actually heading. We're looking beyond just the final scores.
What's really interesting about these early games is like the underlying dynamics. Are we seeing shifts in momentum already?
That's the key question. These first couple of games can set a real tone.
Okay, so let's start in the East. Pacers versus Bucks. And wow, right off the bat, looks like maybe a significant turn here.
You could say that. Pacers took game 2, 123-115.
So they're up 2-0 in the series now.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty powerful statement against a team like the Bucks.
It really is. And what stands out from the analysis we looked at is how the Pacers got those wins. It wasn't just, a scoring barrage necessarily.
Right. It highlighted their resilience,
Hmm.
their strategic smarts.
Yeah, adaptability is a good word for it. The breakdown suggests they consistently kind of dictated how the game was played. They set the terms.
And it seems like two guys were really central to that for Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner.
Absolutely key.
Halliburton sounds like he was the engine, right? Running the offense, making plays, not just scoring, but setting others up.
Yeah, the way the recap described his performance, it was all about his reads, especially in those pick and roll situations. He seemed to just know how the Bucks defense would react.
Making the right decision every time. Hitting the open shooter or the cutter.
Pretty much. It wasn't just about the assists piling up. It was the timing, the precision. That really seemed to mess with Milwaukee's defensive rotations.
And then you've got Miles Turner holding down the paint. The analysis said he was huge on both ends.
Oh, yeah. Scoring efficiently, but also making things really difficult for the Bucks when they had the ball. Sounds like he really threw a wrench in their usual offensive plans.
How so?
Well, his versatility is the thing. He can score inside, but he also stretches the floor with his shooting. That pulls the Bucks' bigs away from the basket.
Opening up driving lanes.
Exactly. And then defensively, he's blocking shots, changing shots. It makes teams hesitant, that two-way impact. The Bucks just haven't seemed to have an answer for it yet.
So even with Giannis and Chris Middleton playing strong, the Bucks still couldn't pull out the wins. What does that suggest?
Well, the material we reviewed points towards a couple things. Struggles with keeping up consistent defensive pressure for the full 48 minutes.
Okay.
And also maybe an inability to really counter the Pacers' offensive flow effectively throughout the game. Giannis Middleton got theirs, sure.
But not enough support.
Seems like it. The analysis hints the supporting cast wasn't consistently providing that extra offensive punch. Maybe too reliant on the stars against a really disciplined Pacers squad.
So the big question for Milwaukee moving forward is, how do they get more consistent offense from those other guys? Take some pressure off Giannis and Middleton.
That's got to be top of mind for them, you'd think. Big adjustments needed.
Definitely. Okay, let's shift gears. West Coast now, Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Memphis Grizzlies.
Right, another team jumping out to a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, the Thunder won pretty decisively, 118-99. This feels different, though. Maybe more like sheer dominance.
I think that's fair. The recap of this one really emphasized the Thunder's teamwork, their cohesion.
It wasn't just one guy.
Not solely, no.
Yeah.
It was the synergy between their main guys. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander obviously had a big scoring night, but it felt like a collective thing. Everyone on the same page. Offense, defense, the works.
SGA scoring, and then Josh Giddey's versatility. Sounds like that duo was just a handful for Memphis.
A major handful. What's interesting about SGA, according to the analysis, is how he gets into the paint. It's not just speed.
Craftiness.
Yeah, craftiness, understanding angles, drawing fouls. He just consistently broke down that Memphis D. And Giddey complements that perfectly handling, rebounding, passing, gives them multiple ways to attack.
And the ball movement for OKC. The recap mentioned that was a real headache for the Grizzlies, constantly finding open shots.
Exactly. When a team moves the ball like that, crisply, finding the open man for good looks, it just puts enormous strain on the defense.
You can't afford any breakdowns?
None. Every possession has to be locked in, and any little mistake, it's probably points for OKC. That kind of efficiency can be really demoralizing for the team trying to stop it.
So Memphis.
Yeah.
We got decent games from Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. apparently, but just couldn't match OKC's level.
Commendable efforts, yeah, but clearly not enough.
What's the adjustment for them? How do they even begin to get back into this series?
The analysis suggests it really has to start on the defensive end. They have to find ways to disrupt OKC's flow.
Easier said than done against SGA and company.
For sure. How do you limit SGA's effectiveness? Do you try different matchups, get more aggressive, trapping the pick and roll, maybe try to slow the whole game down?
Force them into more one-on-one situations?
Perhaps. They need to try something to regain some kind of momentum defensively.
Makes sense. Okay, one more series. Lakers versus Timberwolves. This one's different.
Yeah, a split after 2 games.
The Lakers lost game 1, but bounced back with a pretty gritty 94-85 win in game 2 to even things up at 1-1. Feels like a momentum swing back to LA.
It certainly could be. And the analysis we saw, it points squarely at the Lakers' defense being the absolute key in that Game 2 win.
Really clamped down.
Oh, yeah. They managed to significantly limit Minnesota's scoring, especially from their main guys, KAT and Ant Edwards. The recap highlighted a much more focused, disciplined defensive effort from the Lakers compared to Game 1.
And leading that charge, you had Anthony Davis controlling the boards.
Monster on the glass, yeah.
And LeBron James, maybe not scoring a ton, but orchestrating things, facilitating.
Yeah.
That veteran presence.
Totally. And what stood out was how they adapted. They clearly learned from Game 1, made adjustments. The source mentioned they were way better at limiting Minnesota's transition points.
Forcing them into the half court.
Exactly, making them work for tougher shots. That kind of adaptability, learning, and changing tactics game to game, that's huge in the playoffs. Shows their experience.
So on the flip side, the Timberwolves just couldn't get anything going consistently against that Laker D in Game 2.
Looked like it. You saw flashes from Towns, from Edwards, but overall, the analysis described their offense as looking pretty disjointed.
When your main guys are struggling to get clean looks and the ball isn't moving, yeah, it's tough.
Incredibly tough against a locked-in defense like the Lakers showed. So for Minnesota, the challenge now is finding ways to free up KT and Ant, more creative sets, better off-ball movement.
Right. How do they get their offense back on track without compromising the defensive effort that got them here in the first place? That's the balancing act.
That's the million-dollar question for them going into Game 3.
Okay, so stepping back and looking at all 3 of these series after these April 23rd games, what are the big picture takeaways as we look ahead in these playoffs?
Well, I think a common thread here is just how quickly things can change based on strategic adjustments and how individual players can just elevate their game.
Playoff basketball, right? It's different.
It really is. It's not just about who was better over 82 games. It's about adapting right now, executing under intense pressure, and having your stars, well, be stars when it counts most.
We saw that resilience from the Pacers, bouncing back from deficits maybe, or the Lakers adjusting after a loss, and then the Thunder just imposing their will.
Exactly. All those things underscore that playoff success demands more. It's about making those tactical tweaks, finding favorable matchups.
Like a chess match, really. Constantly probing, looking for weaknesses.
Precisely. And you can bet as these series go on, we're going to see even more adjustments, more counter adjustments, players digging deeper, teams fighting for every single edge.
Absolutely. It really sets the stage for some intense basketball ahead. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive for today, here's something for you, the listener, to think about. Considering these initial games in the Pacers-Bucks, Thunder-Grizzlies, and Lakers-Timberwolves series, and knowing that every team is going to be scheming and adjusting, which one of these 3 matchups do you think holds the most potential for a truly surprising outcome? And maybe more importantly, what single factor do you think will ultimately decide that surprise?